Settle yourself gently before we begin. If you are sitting, allow your shoulders to rest lower than they were a moment ago. If you're lying down, notice the weight of your body pressing quietly into the surface beneath you. There is no need to adjust much. Whatever position you are in is already enough. You are listening to Sleepy Historian, a place where history moves slowly, where details repeat softly, and where time is allowed to stretch without urgency. These stories are meant to be long. They are meant to linger. You may listen closely, or you may drift. Both are fine. Many people return to these histories again and again, picking up fragments at different moments, never needing to hear everything at once. Tonight, we will spend a long time inside the medieval mind. Not the dramatic moments, not battles or kings or sudden revelations, but the quiet, daily understanding medieval people had of thought, emotion, fear, sadness, and personality. Most modern listeners assume that people in the Middle Ages did not really have psychology at all, that they lived without explanations for inner life, that emotions were ignored or simply endured without thought. In reality, medieval people had many explanations. They were just not comforting ones. Within the first moments of waking each day, a medieval person already carried a theory about their own mind. They believed their thoughts came from somewhere specific. They believed their moods had fixed causes. They believed their personality was already decided. And they believed that many feelings, especially difficult ones, were not temporary. This is where our time together will slowly unfold. Before we go further, you might consider staying with this channel. If these long, calm histories have helped you rest before, you're always welcome back. A quiet like, a gentle subscription, or simply returning another night. All of these keep Sleepy Historian alive and unhurried. Now, let us continue slowly. Medieval psychology was not chaotic or mystical in the way it is often imagined. It was structured, ordered, persistent, and once someone accepted its rules, they often carried them for an entire lifetime. There was no concept of working through emotions. No expectation that sadness would lift on its own. No belief that fear might be understood and eased through reflection. Instead, the medieval mind was treated as something acted upon by the body, by the environment, by invisible influences, by birth conditions that could not be changed. You might imagine waking in a medieval town before sunrise. The air is cool, even indoors. Stone walls hold the night's chill. As you rise, you already believe that how you will think today depends on what is flowing inside your body. Not metaphorically, physically. Your temperament is not something you are discovering. It is something you have already been assigned. If you feel heavy, slow, or withdrawn, this is not considered an emotional state. It is a bodily condition. If you feel restless or angry, it is not stress, it is imbalance. An imbalance, once present, is not expected to resolve quickly. This belief does something subtle to the passage of time. When change is not expected, endurance becomes the default. As you listen, you may notice how often medieval explanations remove personal agency from inner life. Thoughts arrive from outside. Emotions are substances. Imagination is something to restrain, not explore. Dreams are not reflections. They are warnings, disturbances, or residue. None of this was considered cruel. It was simply how the world was arranged. You may begin to sense a quiet pressure here. Not fear, not danger, but the weight of carrying explanations that do not move. If your mind wanders for a moment, that is fine. Medieval people believed wandering thoughts were dangerous anyway. They believed thoughts were not private, that a thought could betray your character even if no one heard it, that allowing the wrong idea to linger was a kind of failure, sometimes moral, sometimes physical. Imagine try to rest under those assumptions. Sleep did not protect the mind. Dreams were inspected. Imagination was watched. Even silence was not empty. And yet, daily life continued. Meals were eaten slowly. Work was repetitive. Days followed one another with little variation. This is important to remember as we move forward. These beliefs were not experienced during moments of crisis alone. They shaped ordinary hours, long afternoons, quiet evenings, the dull ache of routine. As we continue, You will not hear shocking revelations. There will be no sudden twists. Instead, you will slowly notice how each belief closes a door, gently, permanently, and how people learn to live inside those closures. You may notice how often medieval psychology explains suffering without offering relief, how often it names a cause without offering escape, how frequently it encourages acceptance over change. If you wake briefly later in this story, you may hear the same ideas returning in slightly different forms. That is intentional. This history is circular, repetitive, much like the lives it describes. For now, remain where you are. Let the pace stay slow. There is nothing you need to remember. In the first main segment, we will begin with the most foundational belief of all, the idea that the body was the mind, and that every thought you had was governed by physical substances moving quietly inside you. Before we go there, allow a breath or two to pass. Notice the stillness around you. Notice how the mind already wants to drift. That drifting is safe here. When you wake into a medieval morning, there is no separation between what you feel and what your body contains. Thought is not abstract. Emotion is not invisible. Everything inside you is believed to be measurable, physical, and slowly moving. You begin the day already explained. Medieval psychology rests first on a simple, steady idea. The mind does not govern the body. The body governs the mind. Inside you, according to medieval belief, are four fluids, the four humors: blood, phlegm, yellow bile, black bile. They are not metaphors. They are real substances believed to circulate, thicken, cool, heat, and settle. And as they do, they shape who you are allowed to be. You do not choose your temperament. You discover it gradually through endurance. If blood dominates, you are thought to be warm, optimistic, sociable. If phlegm dominates, you are slow, calm, forgetful. Yellow bile makes you sharp, restless, easily angered. Black bile settles heavy, bringing seriousness, sadness, and long reflection. None of these are considered temporary moods. If you are sad for many days, it is not grief passing through you. It is black bile accumulating. This belief quietly reshapes how time feels. A bad day is not a bad day. It is a condition. You might notice this as you sit at breakfast. Coarse bread, thin broth, perhaps nothing warm at all. If your thoughts feel sluggish, you do not search your memories for a reason. You assume your internal balance is wrong. There is a strange comfort in this, and also a quiet confinement. Because if your humor is dominant, changing your thoughts directly will not help. Only slow bodily correction might. Bloodletting, diet restriction, herbal purges, cold baths, long walks meant to dry excess moisture. Even rest is prescribed carefully. Too much sleep thickens phlegm. Too little stirs bile. You begin to sense how closely monitored inner life becomes. A medieval person does not ask, "Why do I feel this way today?" They ask, "What has accumulated inside me?" The seasons matter. Winter increases phlegm. Summer stirs bile. Autumn invites melancholy. Spring thins the blood. This means your personality subtly shifts across the year, not emotionally, but physically. You're not expected to resist this. If you feel dull in winter, that is not failure. It is climate. If you feel irritable in heat, it is not impatience. It is yellow bile warming. And if sadness lingers through long stretches of time, it is not something to be spoken through. It is something to be endured and balanced, if possible. Many people assume medieval thought ignored mental suffering. In truth, it named it constantly. It simply did not believe it could be resolved through reflection. Talking about your feelings does nothing to move bile. As you go about your work, repetitive motions, the same tools, the same postures, the belief in humors gives meaning to fatigue. Tiredness is not merely exertion. It is depletion of balance. Even joy is watched carefully. Too much laughter warms the blood dangerously. Too much excitement loosens restraint. A calm demeanor is considered safer for the body and the soul. This produces a particular kind of stillness. Not silence, but moderation. You may notice how this belief makes personality feel fixed. A melancholic child is expected to grow into a melancholic adult. A choleric youth will struggle with anger forever. There is no narrative of transformation, only management. If you wake later in the night listening to this, and you hear again about humors, that repetition mirrors medieval life itself. These ideas were reinforced constantly by healers, by priests, by family, by seasonal routines. You would hear them while eating, while working, while falling ill, while recovering. The explanation followed you everywhere. And yet, most people did not feel trapped by it, because alternatives were not imagined. You do not think, what could I become? You think, what must I maintain? As hours pass, this belief settles into the background of thought. It becomes as ordinary as breathing. You accept that your inner world is governed by slow forces you cannot see. For many, that acceptance brings a quiet patience. For others, a long resignation. The body carries the mind, and the mind waits. You may notice now how the pace of time slows under this belief. If change takes seasons, then endurance becomes the primary skill. There is no urgency here, no rush toward resolution, only balance sought, lost and sought again. In the next part, we will move from substances inside the body to something more elusive, the belief that imagination itself was dangerous, and that thoughts, once formed, could alter reality in subtle but lasting ways. For now, let this idea rest where it is. The body governs the mind, and the mind adapts quietly. When you lie awake in a medieval night, imagination does not feel harmless, is not entertainment, is not creativity. It is something that moves. Medieval psychology does not place imagination in a distant corner of the mind. It sits close to the senses, close to the body, close to the soul. What you imagine is believed to press inward, leaving marks. Thought is porous. If you picture something vividly enough, it does not remain a picture. It alters the humors. It warms or cools the blood. It thickens bile. It unsettles sleep. This belief makes inner life feel risky. You are taught from childhood that certain thoughts invite imbalance. Dwelling too long on desire overheats the blood. Repeated fearful images cool it too much. Sad imaginings feed black bile quietly. Even daydreaming carries weight. If you imagine illness, you may invite it. If you imagine misfortune, you prepare the body to receive it. This is not superstition to them. It is bodily logic. You might notice this when someone falls ill after long worry. The cause feels confirmed. The imagination has worked its slow harm. Because the mind is not sealed. Images pass inward, altering flesh. This is why stories are chosen carefully. Why sermons repeat warnings. Why children are discouraged from idle fantasies. It is also why sleep is watched closely. Dreams are not dismissed as nonsense. They are evidence. A dream of falling suggests inner weakness. A dream of fire suggests heat building inside. A dream of darkness may mean black bile has settled deeply. Waking does not erase the dream's influence. Its residue lingers. You wake slower. Your body carries what the dream stirred. This makes night a vulnerable time. As you drift, thoughts loosen their boundaries. The imagination wanders, and what wanders might not return unchanged. That is why prayer is often used before sleep, not only for salvation, but for containment, to fence the mind, to keep images orderly. Silence is valued at night because silence reduces imagery. Too much stimulation before sleep is believed to disturb the body for days. If you listen closely to medieval advice, you hear restraint everywhere. Do not stare too long at suffering. Do not dwell on violence. Do not replay grief repeatedly in the mind. Not because these are immoral, but because they imprint. The imagination was thought to stamp the body the way a seal marks wax. Slowly, repeatedly, permanently. This belief changes how responsibility feels. If you're anxious, it is not simply circumstance. It is also imagination misused. If you are melancholy, it may be because your thoughts have lingered too long in dark places. This does not bring relief. It brings vigilance. You learn to guard your own mind. But guarding is tiring. because imagination moves even when you try to rest. As you work, grinding grain, stitching cloth, tending animals, the body is busy, but the mind still wanders. And each wandering feels consequential. You sense how this belief places pressure on ordinary thought. Thinking becomes labor. And yet, imagination is also necessary. Memory depends on it. Learning depends on it. Faith depends on it. So the solution is not removal. It is control. The ideal mind is not empty. It is narrow, focused on safe images, familiar prayers, repeated stories. This repetition calms the imagination, like pacing calms an animal. You may notice how this mirrors the structure of medieval days themselves. Same wake time, same work, same meals, same words spoken. Routine is psychological protection. When nights are long, especially in winter, the danger of wandering thoughts increases. Darkness leaves room for images to grow. That is why people sleep in shared spaces. Why candles are left burning. Why quiet, murmured prayers continue even as bodies rest. Solitude invites imagination. Imagination invites imbalance. If you wake in the night restless, your concern is not simply restlessness. It is what thoughts might take shape while you lie still. You may notice, listening now, how gentle this fear feels. It is not panic. It is caution stretched over time. No sudden collapse, just gradual shaping. This belief does something subtle to personality. You become careful with yourself, not introspective, but guarded. Thought is not explored. It is managed. And because of that, inner silence becomes valuable. Not the silence of peace, but the silence of safety. In the next part, we will step into a belief even quieter and heavier. The idea that melancholy was not an illness to cure, but a condition tied to wisdom, and that some sadness was considered necessary, even desirable. For now, let the imagination rest where it is. Still, contained, quiet. Melancholy is not treated as an interruption in medieval life. It is treated as a condition that settles in. Slowly, quietly. You do not fall into melancholy. You grow into it, the way evening grows darker without announcing itself. In medieval psychology, melancholy is not merely sadness. It is a temperament, a way the body holds itself over time. Black bile, cold and dry, is believed to move slowly through the body. It gathers rather than rushes. It does not shout. It presses. When it settles, it brings heaviness to thought, slowness to movement, depth to attention. This is not immediately considered a problem. Some of the most respected figures, scholars, monks, philosophers, are believed to be melancholic by nature. Their quiet endurance, their long hours of study, their ability to sit with difficulty. These are signs, not symptoms. If you observe a person who speaks little, who listens more than they answer, who lingers over questions, you may think of black bile working gently inside them. Melancholy sharpens focus by narrowing it. Joy scatters the mind. Melancholy concentrates it. This belief shapes how intelligence is recognized. A cheerful person may be pleasant. A lively person may be useful. But a melancholic person is thought capable of seeing what others pass by. They notice patterns. They remember details. They sit with unresolved questions without rushing away. This makes melancholy valuable, but only within limits. Too much black bile, and the mind sinks inward too far. Thought loops. Sleep shortens. Appetite fades. The balance is delicate. You're taught to recognize the difference between productive melancholy and dangerous withdrawal. A quiet monk absorbed in prayer is admirable. A laborer who stops speaking entirely becomes concerning. Still, the line is not sharp. Melancholy is allowed room because it aligns with endurance. In a world shaped by waiting, for seasons, for harvests, for recovery, for death, the ability to sit with discomfort is respected. Melancholy does not seek escape. It tolerates. You may feel how this changes the emotional landscape. Happiness is not pursued. Stability is. Excess joy is suspicious. Excess sorrow is dangerous. But a low, steady gravity is acceptable. even useful. This belief influences education. Students are encouraged to read slowly, to copy text by hand, to sit for hours with the same passage. Mental strain is expected. If learning feels heavy, it is working. A light mind is thought to skim. A heavy mind digs. You notice how this frames suffering. If you feel weighed down, you're not immediately told to fix it. You are told to endure it properly. Not dramatically, not loudly, but steadily. This does not mean comfort. Melancholy carries physical discomfort with it. Cold limbs, dry skin, slow digestion. The body mirrors the mind. And because of that, treatments focus on warmth and moisture. Warm foods, gentle movement, moderate conversation, never excitement. Too much stimulation is believed to fracture the mind's depth. So melancholy people are protected from crowds, from noise, from excess. This creates quiet spaces where thinking deepens, but also where isolation grows. Some do not return. They withdraw further. They sleep poorly. They stop eating enough. And still, the label remains ambiguous. Is this wisdom deepening or imbalance spreading? Medieval psychology cannot always tell. That uncertainty lingers. It means some suffering is allowed to persist because it resembles virtue. You're not encouraged to eliminate melancholy, only to keep it from hardening. This belief leaves a mark on culture. Art is restrained. Music is slow. Colors are muted. Expression is measured. Not because emotion is absent, but because too much expression is believed to thin the mind. Silence holds weight. As you sit with this, you may notice how familiar it feels. The idea that depth requires heaviness, that intelligence carries quiet burden. This is not presented as a tragedy. It is presented as a condition of seriousness. In the next segment, we will step further into the medieval inner world, into beliefs about memory, thought patterns, and why forgetting was feared almost as much as madness. For now, allow the mind to remain where medieval thinkers believed it worked best. Not light, not restless, but slow, weighted, still. In medieval thought, memory does not float somewhere inside the mind. It does not drift. It does not belong to abstraction. Memory has weight and location. You are taught that memory lives in the body, shaped by flesh, influenced by heat, altered by moisture and cold. It can be strengthened. It can be weakened. It can be injured. This belief changes how forgetting is understood. Forgetting is not carelessness. It is damage, a blow to the head, a fever that burns too long, excess cold creeping inward. All of these are thought to scar memory the way a wound scars skin. When you forget, something has shifted physically inside you. This makes memory fragile and precious. Medieval life depends on remembering without paper. Instructions, prayers, measurements, routes, lineage. Memory is survival, so the mind is trained carefully. Children memorize aloud, repeating phrases until breath and thought move together. The rhythm matters. Sound anchors thought. You feel how repetition settles into the body. Quietly, gradually, memory is believed to live in chambers, spaces within the head where images are stored. Bright images last longer. Clear images endure. So learning becomes visual. Script is decorated. Stories are vivid. Symbols are layered. The mind is furnished deliberately. But this furnishing can overcrowd. Too many images can fuse the chambers. Too much information causes slipping. This is why restraint matters. You are not meant to know everything. You are meant to remember what matters. Forgetting becomes frightening because it suggests collapse. A man who forgets names may be tired. A man who forgets prayers is unwell. A man who forgets himself is lost. Memory loss threatens identity. You are what you remember. And when memory fades, so does the self. This fear shapes treatment. If memory weakens, warmth is prescribed. Warm foods, warm rooms, warm conversation. Cold stiffens memory. Heat loosens it. Sleep is regulated. Too little dries the mind. Too much dulls it. Balance is everything. Even emotions are controlled for memory's sake. Excess joy scatters thought. Excess grief anchors it too deeply. Moderate feeling preserves clarity. You notice how carefully the inner life is managed. Not for happiness, for continuity. Because memory holds order. When memory fractures, routines falter. A forgotten task leads to error. An error leads to shame. Shame isolates. And isolation worsens the condition. This cycle is recognized, though not fully understood. So memory loss is watched quietly. A person repeating stories is corrected gently. A person losing words is guided slowly. Not confronted. Directness might shock the mind further. Time is allowed. Often, that is enough. Sometimes it is not. Those who forget too much are moved to simpler tasks. Repetition replaces complexity. Life narrows, not as punishment, as protection. You can feel how heavy this is. Forgetting is not neutral. It carries consequence. Yet memory is not perfect even in health. Everyone forgets. This creates anxiety. People rehearse names. They repeat prayers even when alone. They touch familiar objects to anchor thought. The body becomes a reminder. Hands remember what the mind might lose. Tools feel familiar. Paths feel known. Even if names blur, movement persists. This comforts. It suggests memory is shared between mind and body. You are more than your thoughts. Still, fear remains. Because memory links past to present. Without it, time collapses. In medieval psychology, fears collapse more than pain. Pain passes. Disorder spreads. As this belief settles in, you may notice its echo. The quiet checking. The repeated phrases. The comfort of routine. These are not habits of boredom. They are defenses. In the next part, we will explore why imagination was considered more dangerous than forgetting, and how unrestrained thought was believed to bend reality itself. For now, allow memory to rest where medieval thinkers believed it belonged. Warm, ordered, protected. In medieval thinking, imagination is not creative play. It is not harmless wandering. It is power. And power, when left unguarded, is dangerous. You are taught that imagination sits between the senses and reason. It receives impressions. It reshapes them. It holds images after the eyes have closed. This makes imagination unstable. What enters through sight or sound does not always leave unchanged. An image can linger. It can repeat. It can grow sharper in darkness. And if imagination grips too tightly, it begins to govern behavior. This frightens medieval scholars more than simple madness. Madness is a break, visible, disruptive, recognizable. Imagination is subtle. It works quietly. You might imagine something only briefly, then again, then more vividly. Soon it feels present. This is how obsession is explained. A person fixates not because of desire alone, but because imagination has seized control. Love sickness is one example. A young man imagines a woman too often. Her face becomes vivid. Her absence unbearable. His appetite fades. Sleep shortens. Color drains from his skin. The problem is not love. It is uncontained imagination. Treatment aims not at emotion, but at images. The image must be broken. Distraction is prescribed. Labor, travel, cold water, anything to interrupt the mental picture. If the image fades, health may return. The same logic applies to fear. A person imagines danger repeatedly. The mind rehearses threat. The body responds. Pulse quickens. Breath shortens. Sleep fragments. The danger becomes real in the body. This is not superstition to them. It is physiology. Imagination presses upon the humors. It heats the blood. It dries the brain. And once the body changes, thought follows. This feedback loop is what medieval psychology fears. Because imagination can shape reality. Not magically, physically. You imagine illness. The body weakens. Weakness invites illness. This belief encourages restraint. You are warned not to dwell on images of death, not to stare too long at deformity, not to listen repeatedly to frightening stories. The mind absorbs what it lingers on. This makes storytelling powerful and dangerous. Religious imagery is controlled carefully. Too much fear creates despair. Too much beauty creates distraction. Balance is enforced. Even dreams are treated cautiously. Dreams arise from imagination freed during sleep. They may reveal imbalance or cause it. A troubling dream is not ignored. It is analyzed for bodily cause. Too much food before sleep. Excess heat. Melancholy settling inward. The dream is not prophecy, it is symptom. Still, the image matters, because a dream image can remain after waking. And what remains can shape the day. This is why morning routines are slow. Prayer anchors the mind. Cold water clears residue. Light reasserts order. You gently pull yourself back from imagination. Not because imagination is evil, but because it is persuasive. Madness removes reason suddenly. Imagination erodes it gradually. This erosion is harder to notice. A person might appear sane, yet behave strangely. They avoid certain places. They repeat rituals. They act on unseen assumptions. The cause is internal imagery, unshared, unchallenged. This is why community matters. Conversation breaks imagination's hold. Reality is reintroduced gently through others. Silence allows images to dominate. Isolation worsens the condition. You see how social life becomes treatment. Shared meals, shared prayer, shared labor. These ground the mind, not emotionally, structurally. Imagination thrives in stillness. Order interrupts it. Yet imagination is also necessary. It allows planning, memory, understanding. So it must be trained, not eliminated. Children are guided in what to imagine. Stories teach boundaries. Images are purposeful. Fantasy without structure is discouraged because it drifts. And drifting, in medieval psychology, leads to imbalance. You can sense the tension. Imagination is gift and threat. It explains creativity and delusion. And because its effects are slow, they are feared deeply. In the next part, we will explore why sadness was believed to settle physically into the body, and how prolonged sorrow was thought to alter the shape of the mind itself. For now, let imagination rest. Let images soften. Let thoughts slow and return to what is present. In medieval psychology, sadness is not only a feeling. It is a condition that settles. It arrives quietly. It stays longer than expected. And over time, it changes the body that holds it. You are taught that sorrow does not pass through the mind like a thought. It sinks. It gathers weight. At first, sadness is a response. Loss, failure, separation. But when sorrow lingers, it alters balance. The humors shift. Black bile thickens. Warmth withdraws. Movement slows. This is melancholy, not a moment of grief, but a state. And states, in medieval thinking, shape behavior more than events. A melancholic person does not cry endlessly. They grow quiet. Their speech shortens. Their posture curves inward. Sleep becomes light and broken. Food loses appeal. Time stretches. Hours feel heavier. This is not interpreted as weakness. It is physiology. Sadness cools the body. Cooling slows circulation. Slowness dulls perception. Thoughts repeat because movement, physical and mental, has slowed. This repetition is dangerous. Not dramatic, not sudden, gradual. You dwell on a loss too long. The mind circles it. Each return deepens the groove. Eventually, thought cannot escape the path. This is how sadness reshapes the mind, not metaphorically, structurally. Medieval scholars believe the brain itself dries under prolonged sorrow. Dryness hardens thought. Flexible thinking gives way to fixed ideas. This is why melancholic people are seen as stubborn. They are not resisting change. They are unable to bend. Their imagination becomes narrow. Their memory selective. They recall failures vividly. Success fades quickly. Joy is remembered dimly, if at all. This is why sadness is treated early. Not to eliminate grief, but to prevent settlement. Movement is prescribed. Walking, light labor, gardening. Nothing strenuous. Just enough motion to warm the blood. Warmth loosens thought. Music is also used. Simple melodies, predictable rhythms, not excitement, reassurance. The goal is not happiness. It is circulation. Even conversation is regulated. The melancholic are encouraged to speak, but not dwell. Stories are redirected gently. If a person returns to sorrow repeatedly, they are interrupted, not harshly, kindly. Silence is dangerous here. Left alone, sadness deepens. The mind feeds on itself. This is why monasteries are careful. Solitude is sacred, but monitored. Too much isolation allows melancholy to harden. Too little reflection prevents understanding. Balance is fragile. Some sadness is expected. Life contains loss. But prolonged sorrow is considered an illness. Because it changes perception. A melancholic person sees threat where none exists. They anticipate failure. They mistrust pleasure. This is not moral failing. It is altered interpretation. The world appears colder because the body has cooled, and the mind mirrors the body. This belief explains why sadness is treated with warmth. Sunlight, warm baths, thick clothing, even colors matter. Bright hues are encouraged. Dark rooms are discouraged. Environment becomes therapy. You begin to see how psychological care is physical care. There is no separation. Mind and body move together. And if sadness reshapes the body, then the body must reshape the mind back. Time is critical. The longer sorrow remains, the harder it becomes to dislodge. Eventually, it is believed to settle permanently. This is when melancholy becomes identity. A person is no longer sad. They are melancholic, defined by it. This is feared because it limits possibility. It narrows life. And life, to medieval thinkers, must remain adaptable. Change is survival. Stagnation invites decay. So sadness is watched closely, not with alarm, with patience, with routine, with gentle intervention. You may notice how quiet this approach is. There are no sudden cures, no dramatic turning points, only gradual redirection, warmth returning slowly, movement increasing slightly, thought widening bit by bit. This slowness mirrors the illness. You cannot rush the mind. You can only guide it. In the next segment, we will move beyond memory and emotion into how medieval thinkers believed thought itself could wear down the body and why too much thinking was considered physically dangerous. For now, let heaviness soften. Let the body rest in stillness. Let sadness remain acknowledged, but not in control. In medieval thought, thinking is not only an activity of the mind. It is work that draws from the body, and the body has limits. You may notice how quietly this idea shapes daily life. Too much thought, it is said, can exhaust the humors, drain warmth, slow the pulse. It is not metaphor. It is physiology. To think intensely for hours is to sweat unseen. To strain over abstract questions is to pull heat from the limbs. To worry without action is to starve the body while feeding the mind. Teachers of the period caution against long debates or solitary study. They warn that the head becomes heavy. The eyes water. The hands tremble. You are guided to balance thinking with movement. Walk after contemplation. Stretch. Handle simple tasks. Even meditation has boundaries. Reflecting on a problem until sunrise is considered dangerous. Not because of failure, but because of fatigue that creeps silently. Some text describes symptoms. A dulling of the senses, lightheadedness, a lingering cold in the extremities, a sense of compression in the chest. All these signs indicate that the mind has overreached. The body signals quietly. Pain is not immediate. Collapse is rare. But over months, the habit of excessive thought can leave the body thin and fragile. Interestingly, the remedies echo the approach to melancholy. Moderation, warmth, and motion. Short walks in the sun. Hands engaged in simple labor. Conversation that shifts focus gently. Even the act of eating is regulated. Meals are seen as fuel for thought. Heavy meals slow the mind. Sparse meals leave it anxious. Balance, again, is crucial. This philosophy extends to young learners. Children are encouraged to alternate study with chores. Excessive memorization is frowned upon. Excessive reflection is dangerous. In monasteries, scholars are observed. Those who dwell too long over texts are reminded to rise, to attend to the body, to perform menial tasks. Even prayer, though spiritual, is framed in this physical sense. Lengthy recitations without movement invite fatigue. Posture becomes rigid, breath shallow. The consequence is subtle, yet persistent. A body weakened by thought invites illness. The mind, now unsteady, interprets the world incorrectly. Fear and anxiety increase because the senses themselves have dulled. In this way, medieval thinkers link intellect with survival. Overthinking is not mere folly. It is a slow erosion of capacity. And so, the wise moderate thought like fire. Too little, and the mind stagnates. Too much, and the body suffers. A careful rhythm is maintained. You may feel the weight of this philosophy yourself as you sit quietly, listening. The knowledge moves slowly from head to body. The rhythm of thought mirrors the rhythm of life. And as in melancholy, subtle guidance prevails over force. Correction is gentle. Observation is constant. Change is gradual. In the next part, we will explore the physical spaces designed to safeguard the thinking mind and how environment was used to prevent the slow erosion of health. Medieval thinkers often believed that the environment shaped the mind as much as the mind shaped the body. A quiet room, a stable temperature, and gentle light were considered as necessary as food or sleep. You may imagine entering such a space. The walls are thick stone, absorbing the noises of the world outside. The air smells faintly of herbs and beeswax. Sunlight enters slowly through narrow windows, softening the edges of the room. Here, thought is contained. The body can relax. The humors are less likely to be drained. In monasteries, chambers are deliberately simple. Furniture is minimal. The floor is stone or packed earth. A single rug cushions the feet. The mind is free to wander, but not to strain. Windows are small, but placed to catch the morning sun. A scholar sitting here benefits from warmth, from light, and from the quiet rhythm of passing shadows. The physical design is subtle guidance. It prevents overexertion. It directs the mind in slow, measured ways. Even the position of the desk is intentional. Close to the light, yet far from the door. Within reach of ink and parchment, but never cluttered. The tools of writing are themselves reminders. To pause, to stretch, to breathe. You may notice how this philosophy aligns with the lessons of overthinking. Movement, environment, and schedule work together. A gentle balance is maintained between study and rest. Some texts suggest that outdoor spaces are equally protective. Gardens, cloisters, and shaded courtyards are used for contemplation. Walking slowly, touching leaves, noticing the rhythm of birdsong. All of these slow the mind without halting it. The temperature matters as well. Cold, damp rooms sap energy. Too warm, and the senses dull. The ideal is a room that encourages alertness without tension. Monastic rules reflect this understanding. Certain hours are devoted to study, others to prayer or manual work. Food and rest are scheduled. The environment enforces limits softly without coercion. For the layperson, the principle is the same. Homes are arranged to reduce noise. Workspaces face the sun. Tools and books are placed to minimize strain. Life itself becomes a slow choreography, aimed at preserving both mind and body. Even the choice of companions matters. Those who are restless, quarrelsome, or excessively talkative are avoided during periods of concentrated thought. Quiet, steady individuals are preferred. Social environment is part of the protective strategy. Over time, these practices produce subtle endurance. The body remains capable. The mind continues to reflect. Neither is overwhelmed. And even if fatigue comes, it arrives gently, allowing for rest rather than sudden collapse. You may sense this rhythm as you listen now. The quiet structuring of space mirrors the quiet structuring of the script. A slow, deliberate cadence allows your mind to follow along, without strain, without alarm. And in this way, medieval thinkers quietly engineered safety for the mind, understanding that thought itself, if unchecked, could become a slow, invisible threat. In medieval times, the mind was not merely a vessel for knowledge. It was treated as a muscle that required careful, deliberate training. The practices were slow, measured, and often repetitive, designed to strengthen attention without causing strain. Imagine yourself seated at a small wooden table. A thin wax tablet lies before you, and a stylus rests lightly in your fingers. The morning light filters in through narrow windows, soft and uneven. Outside, a gentle wind moves through the trees. Your task is not urgent, yet it demands patience. Perhaps you're copying a passage from a revered text. Letter by letter, your hand moves across the wax. Mistakes are corrected quietly. There is no rush, no applause, no immediate reward. This exercise, repeated daily, trains more than the hand. It teaches focus, endurance, and subtle precision. Your eyes follow the lines carefully. Your mind rehearses the structure of each sentence. Your breathing aligns with the rhythm of writing. Other exercises are purely mental. Memorization of prayers, lists of saints, or passages from philosophical works is common. You recite slowly, silently, observing the order and the cadence. The repetition embeds the material gently, without overexertion. Physical movement often accompanies mental work. A short walk between tasks allows the mind to consolidate. Hands may stretch, back may relax, eyes glance at distant points. This is not leisure, but part of the conditioning, subtle endurance in both body and mind. You notice how quiet observation is valued. Watching the flight of birds, the shifting of clouds, or the patterns of leaves on the ground trains patience and attention. The mind learns to notice small changes, to hold its focus, and to return repeatedly to subtle details. Some texts advise gentle debate. Two thinkers might sit opposite one another, exchanging observations. Arguments are soft, tempered by courtesy. Each speaks slowly, considering both words and tone. The exercise develops reasoning, memory, and social awareness without excitement or conflict. Even games have their place. Counting stones, arranging simple patterns, or noting the cycles of light and shadow becomes a practice of mindfulness. These activities are deliberately low stakes, slow, and repetitive. They cultivate resilience and observation rather than entertainment. Diet and rest are quietly interwoven into these mental exercises. A light meal prevents sluggishness. Short periods of rest prevent fatigue from undermining focus. The rhythm of daily life is a scaffold for mental endurance. And just as the room, the time of day, and the companions were chosen with care, so too are the exercises themselves calibrated. Too little practice leaves the mind idle. Too much overwhelms it. The medieval scholar learns the delicate balance, the art of pacing, repetition, and subtle reinforcement. You may sense a parallel between these exercises and listening now. Each sentence, each observation arrives without haste. Your attention can drift and return. There is no alarm, no sharp surprise, only the steady, gentle development of awareness over time. This is the quiet endurance of the medieval mind. Slow, disciplined, subtly strengthened, prepared to observe the world without being undone by it. As evening approaches, the medieval household begins to settle into familiar rhythms. Faith is a steady presence, not merely a set of beliefs, but a framework that shapes daily actions, thoughts, and even the passage of time itself. You may imagine the scene: a small room with narrow windows, where the fading light casts soft shadows along stone walls. Candles are lit slowly, their flames steady, fragile, but enduring. The air carries the faint scent of tallow, of herbs drying above the hearth, and of quiet expectation. Daily prayers are repeated in careful cadence. Hands fold gently, eyes close. The words themselves are both rhythm and ritual, a measured passage through hours, guiding the mind inwards. It is not dramatic. There is no fervent shouting or desperate pleading. Instead, there is a quiet weight to each observance, a subtle, almost imperceptible insistence that life is governed by unseen structures. You may notice how routine itself is a form of endurance. Rising with the sun, performing tasks at precise hours, recalling prayers or psalms, tending to fire or livestock. All of these create a slow, persistent discipline. The mind becomes accustomed to repetition, the body to the rhythm of daily care. Even the smallest gestures carry meaning. A bowl of water placed by the doorway, a candle extinguished at dusk, the folding of cloth. Each action is performed with attention, a quiet reinforcement of beliefs and communal order. Some rituals are collective. Neighbors may gather, but not for entertainment. They meet to observe, to recount small occurrences of the day, to reinforce shared knowledge and shared endurance. The conversation is calm, measured, often punctuated by long silences. No one seeks to impress. All seek to maintain rhythm and continuity. You may sense that these quiet observances are not just about faith. They're a subtle psychological conditioning. The repetition trains patience, endurance, and an acceptance of constraint. It quietly prepares the individual to withstand the uncertainties of daily life. Slow hunger, unexpected labor, illness, or the passing of friends and family. Even the smallest failures, a forgotten line of prayer, a neglected chore, are absorbed slowly. They are not dramatic events, but small tremors that test awareness and that return the practitioner gently to mindfulness. The rhythm persists softly without alarm. And so, you observe the enduring structure of daily life. Faith, work, observation, and care intertwined in a slow, deliberate dance. Even when night falls and activity dwindles, the mind remains tuned to quiet attentiveness, guided by ritual, patience, and repetition. The morning begins slowly, though you may already feel the lingering weight of night. The sun rises in muted light, touching the tops of stone walls and wooden beams with soft clarity. Tasks resume as if the world itself expects nothing but steady effort and measured breath. Labor in the medieval setting is not a spectacle. It is the quiet shaping of existence, a slow endurance of body and mind. You may imagine carrying water from a distant well, the leather strap of a bucket pressing against your hand, the cool splash of liquid offering brief, understated relief. The rhythm is deliberate. The effort is persistent, not dramatic. Fields require attention. Animals demand care. Fires must be maintained. You move slowly, step by step, aware of the passage of time, not by hours alone, but by the cumulative weight of tasks. There is no hurry. There is no modern sense of efficiency. Only the continual flow of work and the quiet awareness of fatigue. In the home, chores repeat. Washing, sweeping, kneading dough. Hands remember the motions before the mind fully does. Fatigue sets in gradually. There is no alarm, no sudden strain. It is subtle, accumulating, teaching endurance without a word. You may notice how the senses attune to the environment. The smell of wet earth, the texture of stone and wood, the slow shift in daylight. Each becomes part of perception, part of survival. You are reminded, in quiet observation, that comfort is rare, that persistence is necessary. Time itself seems to stretch. Moments of repetition become markers of day's progression. Tasks performed in sequence, tending fire, feeding animals, mending cloth, act as a metronome for awareness. You feel the slow unfolding of hours, the subtle push of endurance against the soft constraints of mortality and circumstance. The work is rarely acknowledged. It is invisible labor, unnoticed except in its absence. Yet it shapes the body, fortifies the mind, and maintains continuity across the household. There's a quiet mastery in this daily repetition, an almost imperceptible satisfaction in being able to endure the passage of ordinary hours. Some endure more than others. The body sometimes fails quietly. Fingers blister, muscles ache, eyes grow heavy. The mind responds in kind. Not panic, not alarm, only a gentle insistence to continue. You notice how small rhythms, the bending, lifting, stirring, create a subtle psychological scaffolding. You survive not by speed, but by continuity. And so, the day moves forward, neither heroic nor dramatic, but measured and unrelenting in its quiet insistence. You witness endurance as an art of survival, one that is slow, unnoticed, and softly instructive. As the day advances, the cumulative weight of repeated tasks settles into your body. Shoulders tighten, legs ache, and your breath carries the faint reminder of persistent effort. It is not pain that demands attention, but the gentle insistence of time itself, urging quiet endurance. The evening rituals begin with subtle repetition. Animals are fed again, the fire is replenished, and water is drawn for washing. Each act mirrors the one that came before, yet with slight variation. The bucket is heavier now, the air cooler, the shadows longer. You notice small details, the faint chill creeping along the stone floor, the scent of smoke lingering near the hearth, the soft creak of timber settling as the house grows still. Care is practiced quietly. Bandages are reapplied. Food is portioned carefully. Small comforts are repeated. A warm cloth on a weary shoulder, a bowl of broth sipped slowly. These are gestures without spectacle, essential to survival, yet unnoticed by the world beyond the walls. You sense how even small attentions carry significance, shaping the body and mind through habitual observance. Time flows slowly now, measured by diminishing light and the settling of dust in corners. The world contracts inward, a body tending itself, a mind observing the rhythm of survival. Fatigue is cumulative, soft but insistent, coaxing stillness without demand. You find yourself aware of each movement, each breath, as if the day has distilled itself into a series of deliberate, unhurried actions. There's quiet reflection in these hours. You notice the patterns that endure, the repetition of labor, the invisible threads of care, the subtle progression of time from dawn to dusk. The knowledge that life is sustained by these quiet acts offers a different sort of insight than excitement or spectacle ever could. It is a slow understanding, one that seeps into awareness without fanfare. Night descends with muted light and soft shadows. Windows frame the fading glow of the horizon, and firelight flickers across stone and wood. The household rests in stages. Some sleep immediately. Others move with hushed attention, completing the last minor tasks. You feel the weight of the day and the calm rhythm of survival coexisting. The body weary, the mind settled, the environment unchanging yet alive. This is the world as it persists. Quiet, enduring, often unnoticed. Survival is not a dramatic act. It is repetition, attention, and subtle care. And as you drift with the dimming light, you carry the faint satisfaction of having endured, of having moved through the day without alarm, without sudden disruption, but with measured attention to the slow passage of hours. Some moments are unremarkable. Some are quietly illuminating. You sense how endurance shapes the psyche, how subtle pressures teach patience, how habitual care binds body and environment together in an almost imperceptible rhythm. Here, life moves softly, persistently, and without urgency, yet the lessons it leaves are quietly enduring. Night fully settles. The household grows still. You notice the calm finality of actions concluded, the gentle release of strain, and the comfort found in persistence itself. No dramatic end, no sudden clarity, only the gradual fading into rest, the quiet understanding that tomorrow will return with its own slow insistence. As night deepens, the day's quiet exertions settle into memory. You feel the accumulated rhythm of routine, fatigue, and attention. The lessons of endurance and subtle care linger, not as dramatic tales, but as faint impressions on the mind, gently shaping how you perceive time, effort, and survival. In modern life, such routines may feel foreign. We are accustomed to speed, immediacy, and constant notice. Yet here, in the dimly lit spaces of the past, the body and mind move with slow deliberation. Each step, each small task was weighted with consequence, often unseen, often uncelebrated. You realize that this quiet persistence was, in its own way, both discipline and survival. The night continues, soft and unbroken. Fires crackle lightly, animals settle, and the air cools with the passing hours. You may notice how sound seems amplified in the stillness. The creak of timber, the whisper of wind through stone, the distant call of a night bird. These small details, once overlooked, now settle into your awareness, forming a tapestry of lived experience that is slow, deliberate, and enduring. It is a world without dramatic resolutions. Some did not wake again, others endured quietly. Morning would come for some, slowly, predictably, and without spectacle. And yet, in the patterns of care and the subtle attention to environment and body, life continued, persistent, measured, unhurried. You sense that this was not merely survival, but a form of quiet mastery over the constant pressures of existence. You may notice how your own awareness has changed. The gentle unfolding of hours, the unnoticed effort, and the patient attention required to simply continue, all create a sense of calm observation. Even as the modern world intrudes upon memory, the lessons of endurance, of habitual care, and of slow, quiet observation remain. Sleep may come now, or perhaps it will drift and return. Either way, the past lingers softly in your mind, in patterns, in habits, in the quiet rhythm of tasks repeated and attention given. There is no sudden uplift, no final dramatic conclusion. Instead, there is gentle release, a recognition that even unnoticed acts, repeated day after day, shape experience, survival, and the subtle texture of human life. The fire dwindles, shadows stretch and merge, and a hush settles over the home. You feel the weight of the day, not sharply, not urgently, but as a quiet acknowledgement of endurance. Tomorrow will return, as it always does, bringing its own slow insistence, its own uncelebrated demands, its own subtle lessons. And for now, you rest in the calm continuity, the soft rhythm of life maintained through careful attention and enduring patience. The great tapestry of the past, with its quiet struggles, subtle routines, and enduring rhythms, settles gently in your awareness. You have observed for a time the unremarkable yet persistent acts that sustained life. And in this observation, there's a certain comfort, not of excitement, but of understanding, of presence, and of quiet endurance. And so the day and the story concludes softly, leaving you with the slow, measured pulse of human persistence, the gentle passage of time, and the calm knowledge that life, in its quietest moments, continues.